with me now. Go with me now. I'm gonna take you down. Go with me now. I'm gonna show you how. Go with me now.
Alright, so welcome to lecture number 2 in Unit 3. We're going to be talking about real GDP today, but to get us started, I just want you to look at this chart. This chart came out of The Economist magazine, and it's just making the point that in China they're making a lot of steel, but they're not using it. So this little bar here is their domestic demand. So the demand for steel is falling in China, which kind of tells you that maybe their economy is slowing down a little bit, because if they're not using steel, that probably means they're not producing things. Whereas on the other hand, they're exporting more steel. So, you know, maybe they're just they're still producing the same amount of stuff as far as GDP goes, but they're exporting more of it instead of using it within their country. Anyway, it's kind of interesting because it's things like that that can help you predict what an economy is doing. Alright, so let's get started. So last time we talked about just gross domestic product. Today we're going to be talking about real gross domestic product. So we have the exact same definition, really. It's the value of all final goods and services legally produced within a nation's borders during a given year, but then we add adjusted for inflation. So it's still only final goods, so no intermediate goods. Alright, it's still has to be legally produced. It's within our borders during a given year. But now what we're doing here when we adjust for inflation is we're holding dollars to a constant value. So in other words, if a Coke is $1 this year, we're going to make sure the Coke is $1 in the following year and the following year and the following year, so that we really only measure how many Cokes are produced, not how much we sold in terms of dollars. Alright, so maybe we'll do a couple things to make this make more sense. Alright, so real GDP is actual output. Okay, so we're going to use $1 as our unit of measure, but it's actual output. Alright, so here's an example. Here we have an economy that produces Krabby Patties. It produces 3 of them in year 1, and they have a value of $2 each. So the nominal GDP in year 1 is the $2 times the 3 Krabby Patties for a total of $6. Now I'm going to note here that this is also the real GDP because we have no inflation yet. Okay, so in year 1 there's no inflation. Alright, now look at year 2. Year 2 comes along and the economy produces 2 Krabby Patties, but the price of them has increased to $3.05 each. So the nominal GDP this year is $6.10. So if you just look at these two numbers, you would have to conclude that we have growth, right? Well, the truth is we don't have growth. So we need to calculate the real GDP. And like I said before, it's adjusted for inflation. So if the price of Krabby Patty went up from $2 to $3.05, that means there's inflation of $1.05. So if we remove the $1.05 from each of these Krabby Patties, what do we get? $2 each, and so 2 times 2 is $4. So real GDP is $4. So when we compare these numbers, now we know that the economy didn't grow. And as we learned last time, that means we're in a recession. Alright? So it's a decrease in output, even though the nominal GDP increased. Alright, so here's some definitions that we need to know. Alright, so we got real GDP. That's GDP measured with prices held constant over time. Then the opposite of real GDP is nominal GDP. So that's what we discussed last time. So nominal GDP is just GDP measured in current prices. Now, to calculate real GDP, let me go back for a second. We're not going to actually literally subtract the inflation from everything produced. Okay, so this is a very simplistic example. Instead, we're going to use this thing called a price index. Okay, a price index is an index that measures how much prices have changed over time. And so if we know how much prices have changed over time, we can create this index and then use it to adjust the current prices down to base year prices. Now, that index is the exact same thing as a GDP deflator. So this is just another term for it. And so the GDP deflator is used to deflate the inflation from nominal GDP so that we can find real GDP. So let's do some examples. First, let's look at Venezuela. So if you only looked at nominal GDP, this is similar to the Krabby Patty example. Nominal GDP is increasing every year, and the reason it does is because they have inflation. All right. Their real GDP, though, has stayed, pretty flat. It hasn't grown at all. In fact, if you look at it currently, so this is from 2010, if you go further down to 2017, you will see that this economy has actually dropped off of this chart. Okay, so the deflator allows us to remove this distance between the nominal and the real GDP, and so that's what we're going to do. All right. By the way, all economies have inflation, and so does the U.S. Now look at this chart. In 2005, that's our base year, and so in 2005, nominal GDP and real GDP were identical. But then each year after that, we started to see inflation, and so the difference here between the nominal and the real GDP is just the inflation premium, if you will. So we're going to learn how to remove that so that we get nothing but this real GDP. Okay. Now let's talk about an index real quick. All right. So when I refer to an index, I'm just talking about like a starting point. And if you look at let's look at the chart on the right. Okay. This black, now purple dot is the starting point for home prices. And so at that point, all home prices are 100% of what home prices were in those countries at that time. Okay? And then over time, the home prices have increased. All right? So if you let's look at Britain, for example, here. Check it out. In Great Britain, it looks like home prices today are 1,100% of what they were in 1980. Look at the United States. Here's the United States. Home prices are, I'm making up a number here, but it looks like about 350% of what they were in 1980. So the index just tells you by how much did prices change by. It doesn't tell you that homes in Great Britain cost more than homes in the United States. It just says they went up by a larger percent. Okay? So it's a measure of how prices have changed over time. So here's some examples of nominal GDP and then these price indexes. So if you look at 2005, the price index is 100. That means that is the base year, because the prices in 2005 are 100% of the prices in 2005. As you go forward in time, prices rise, and so if we look at 2009, this means that prices are 109.7% of what they were in 2005. That's basically what these indexes mean. If you go to 2000, now let's go to 2001. Prices were 90.7% of 2005's prices. Okay, so this GDP deflator or price index, okay, this is used to tell us how much prices have changed by. And this column here, these are the nominal GDPs. These are somewhat useless to us because every year the GDP is increasing, and every year part of that increase is due to inflation. And so we can't rely on nominal GDP statistics. We have to use real GDP. So here's an example. So in 1987, real GDP was $4,539.9 billion. Okay. In 1994, nominal GDP was $6,736.9 billion. Now, what we need to do is remove the inflation from the red balloon from 1994. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to use this equation right here. So you can find real GDP by taking nominal GDP, dividing by a deflator, and then multiplying by 100. So our deflator for 1994 is 126.1. Okay, so I'm giving this to you. Alright, we're going to learn how to calculate that in a little while, but for right now I'm just giving it to you. If we plug that into our formula, we take the 6736.9 from the red balloon, divide by 126.1. Let's see, I got to punch these in. 6736.9 divided by 126.1 times 100, and I'm getting 5342.5. So the real GDP is 5342.5. Okay, so that's how we will remove the inflation from nominal GDP, and that allows us to then actually compare these 2 years, and we would say that between those 2 years we have economic growth. All right, so let's do some more examples. I want you just hit pause, take a couple of minutes, and calculate the real GDP for 2004, 2005, and 2006. And then we'll quickly go over it. Okay, so go ahead and just pause. Alright, I guess you're back. I don't know if you really paused or not, but that's okay. So here's how we do it. So for 2004, we're going to take 11,853.3 and we divide by our deflator, and for that year it's 96.8. And then we multiply by 100, and that will give us our real GDP. So 11,853.3 divided by 96.8 times 100. I got 12,245.14. Okay. Now notice in 2004 we actually had to increase the GDP to make it real. That's because the prices were lower in 2004 than they were in the base year. Okay, so let's do 2005, and you'll notice something interesting about 2005 when we do it. Divided by 100, because that's the deflator, and then multiply by 100, and we get 12,623. So here's the interesting thing about the base year. In a base year, the index is always 100, and then nominal GDP is the same as real GDP. So make sure you know that. That's a very important thing. I don't want anybody tricked up. Alright, 2006. We take the 13,377.2, divide by the deflator, which is 103.2, multiply by 100, and what do we get? Alright, 13377.2 divided by 103.2 times 100. I got 12962.4, assuming I did it correctly. Alright, so those are some examples on how to do that. So hopefully you got that down. You will need to memorize this formula. So real GDP is equal to nominal GDP divided by the GDP deflator, also known as a price index, and then multiply by 100. Alright, oh, there it is. Boom. Price level, price index, GDP deflator. These are all the same thing. Alright, so you might be asking, well, we're given the GDP deflator all the time, so do we ever have to calculate it? The answer is yes, you do. So let me tell you how to do that. Alright, so to get a GDP deflator, you take a market basket in the current year, meaning the year that you're trying to calculate, and then you divide it by a market basket from the base year. Now what do we mean by a market basket? A market basket is just a set quantity of goods and services that the government decides is part of the market basket, and then they calculate the price of that market basket in any given year. So as an example, we are going to create a market basket with 2 Dr. Peppers, 2 Whataburgers, 5 Reese's, and 1 Bluebell ice cream in it. And then we're going to use those quantities to calculate our market basket for a couple of years. Okay, so let's do for 2015. we're going to take the 2 Dr. Peppers, multiply by the $1, and plug it in over here, and we get $2. Okay. Then we're going to take the 2 Whataburgers times the $3 that they cost, and we plug it in and get $6. And then the 5 Reese's times 75 cents, it's $3.75. And then the 1 Bluebell times the $5, and we get $5. And so we have to add this up. So we get $8.75, $14.75, looks like $16.75. That's the value of the market basket in 2015. Alright, now you calculate the market basket for 2016. Hit pause and do that, and then we'll go over it. Alright, so how do we do that? Now we're going to take 2 times the new price of $1.25. So 2 Dr. Peppers at $1.25 each is $2.50. And then the 2 Whataburgers times $3.25 gives us $6.50. And now we have 5 Reese's at $1 a piece, that is $5. And then we have 1 Bluebell at $4.50. So if we add all this up, $9.50, let's see, 11.50, 12, 18.50. And there we have our market basket for 2 years. Okay? Now, to get the deflator, we're going to assume, let's assume that 2015 is the base year. Okay? So if 2015 is our base year, to get our deflator or index, remember price index, deflator, they are the same thing. So I'm going to write this out. Our index is equal to the current year market basket. So the current year, we'll call it 2016. So I got 1850, and I have to divide by the base year, 1675, and then multiply by 100. So to get the GDP deflator for 2016, so this is the 2016 index, we do 18.5 divided by 16.75 and multiply by 100, and we get 110.45. Now that's not dollars, this is just a number, it's an index. What it really equates to is 110.45%. Prices in 2016 are 110% of what prices were in 2015. So that's how we calculate our deflator. So let's keep on going. The next thing we're going to learn about is how to calculate growth rates. Okay? And this is important because we want to know how fast our economy is growing. Okay? So to calculate the growth rate, we just take the percent change in real GDP from one year to another. Okay? So here's an example. To calculate real GDP growth in 2006, we're going to take the real GDP from 2006, subtract the real GDP from 2005, then divide by the real GDP from 2005, multiply by 100, and we get our growth rate. So let's practice that. So let's see, are these are the real GDPs? Yes, these are real GDPs that we calculated earlier. Okay, so that's helpful. So to calculate the growth rate, let's do 2005 and then 2006. Okay, so the 2005 growth rate is going to be the GDP from 2005 subtracting the GDP from the previous year from 2004. I hate those little squigglies. Let me get rid of that. Okay, and then dividing by the real GDP from 2004. Multiply that by 100. Okay, let's see what we get. 12623 minus 12245.14 equals, then divide by 12245.14 equals times 100. I got 3.09%. So we would say the growth rate for 2005 was 3.09% because the economy grew by 3.09% in real terms. Okay? So that's how you do that. To do 2006, now you're going to use the real GDP from 2006, 12962.4, and you're going to subtract it from 2005 this time, and then divide by the one from 2005 and multiply by 100, and you'll get a number. Alright, so real GDP growth rate is just essentially it's the change in GDP divided by the previous GDP times 100. Alright, we can also calculate inflation rate, and it's done pretty much the same way, but we're gonna demonstrate it. So the inflation rate between 04 and 05, the way we would do this is we're going to just see the percent change between the price level or the GDP deflator or price index between those 2 years. So let's see. By the way, here it is for 2010. So for 2005, we're going to take the the price index from 2005 and subtract the price index from 2004, and then divide by the price index from 2004. Multiply that by 100 to get percent, and let's see what we get. 100 minus 96.8 divided by 96.8 times 100. We had inflation of 3.31%. Okay? Fun stuff. Alright, so here is some practice for you to do, and then we will go over this when you get back in class. So you've got some formulas here that you might need. They're on the next page as well. Actually, they're on your notes packet, so you've got them in front of you. All the formulas that we use. A price index, that's what CPI is. It's a specific price index. Okay? And it's found again by the current year market basket divided by the base year market basket times 100. Then we had our GDP deflator, same thing. Nominal GDP is simply price times output. Real GDP is the nominal GDP divided by a price index times 100. Growth rate is real GDP 2 minus real GDP 1 divided by real GDP 1 times 100. Alright, so here's what you're going to do. I'll do some of these, with you, but I want you to fill out this whole chart. So you're going to calculate nominal GDP 4 times, a market basket 4 times, a GDP deflator 4 times, real GDP 4 times, and then GDP growth rate 4 times. Now, check it out. The base year is 2009, and the market basket contains 2 cool eyeglasses and 1 bad haircut. Okay? So, nominal GDP is price times output. So to get the nominal GDP in 2008, we're going to multiply the output times the price and then add them together. Okay? So 100 times $2 is $200, and then 100 times $5 is $500. $500 plus $200 is $700. So our nominal GDP in 2008 is $700. Okay, our market basket is 2 eyeglasses and 1 haircut. So for that year, $2 times 2 eyeglasses is $4, plus 1 bad haircut is $5, so that's $9 total. Okay? The GDP deflator or the index. So remember, you take current year market basket divided by base year market basket times 100. So since we're talking about 2008 and 2009 is our base year, that means I kind of need the price of the market basket in 2009. So I guess I need to add that up. So it's 2.25 times the price of the eyeglasses times 2 of them, so $4.50, plus a $5.50 haircut, so $4.50 plus $5.50 is $10. So it looks like I'm doing some of your work for you, dang it. Okay, so my GDP deflator for 2008 then is going to be the current year market basket of $9 divided by the base year market basket of $10 times 100. Okay, real GDP is going to be the nominal GDP divided by the index, but let's see, in this case the index is 90. Here, I'll finish that out, 90. So 700 divided by 90 and then you have to multiply by 100. So real GDP is 777.78. And we can't calculate a growth rate for a year that we don't have a previous year for. So that's kind of how you're going to do this. I want you to have that done when you come to class, and then we'll go over it, and then we'll do some cool other exercises. Awesome. Oh look, selfie.